Hey everybody, welcome to Musicians Musings. This is the place where we reflect, learn, and grow as musicians in ministry. I'm Zeke.
And I'm Zach.
Let's get into today's episode. Burnout.
Alrighty. So, burnout. What exactly is it? In your own words, Zeke, what is burnout?
Burnout is when you get tired of playing or you feel like you're not getting inspiration for playing.
Yeah. And so you can also, if you were to look it up in a dictionary, this is from Oxford Languages, the reduction of a fuel or substance to nothing through use or combustion. You think of like a workout. Number 2, the failure of an electrical device or component through overheating. That's pretty self-explanatory. Here's the definition we're going to be covering today. The third one is physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or stress. It's informal. You think of a dropout as one. So that's kind of what burnout is. Just a kind of a brief overview of burnout. How do you recognize burnout? I have 3 points that I'm going to cover on how to recognize it. One is signs of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. It's pretty easy to see if somebody's like stressed out a little bit, especially after you get to know them. What's the difference between stress and burnout? Well, you have 2 different types of stress. You have what's called eustress. That's EU at the beginning. EU meaning good or well. So you have good stress, and then you have distress, and you kind of think of like bad. So you have good stress and bad stress. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but what would a good stress be?
A job?
Yeah, a job. You have a goal in mind, you're working towards that goal. That could be a eustress. A distress, you think of something bad. You're stressed out because you have an exam and you forgot to study. That's a distress. It's a bad stress. You should have studied.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what stress is. Relating that to burnout, what do you think the difference is between those?
Relating the types of stress to burnout, burnout would be like the musical version of the distress.
Yeah. Or even just broaden that up, not just musically, but burnout is like a very bad form of stress.
Burnout is
past that point.
Caused by stress.
Yeah, it's gone past the point of just a regular distress, and there's disastrous consequences to it. Especially as we get into this, we're going to look at like spiritual distress and like the spiritual consequences of it. And actually, let's do this. I'm going to spring this on you, Zeke. I don't know if you have your Bible handy. We're going to go, I want to say it's 1 Kings. Let me look. No, it's 2 Kings. Okay. If you want to find it for me, we're going to be talking about Elijah. Elijah on Mount Carmel. I thought it was in 1 Kings. Do you remember?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, let's look real quick. This is completely impromptu. 1 Kings chapter 17. I was right the first time. In 1 Kings chapter 17, we are introduced to Elijah. Chapter 18 is when God comes to Elijah and says, hey, we're going to have rain again. And so Elijah goes and talks to Obadiah and Ahab, sets up the meeting on Mount Carmel. Skipping over to chapter 19 and verse 1. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he had saw that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. Verse 4. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. He sat down under a juniper tree. Now, if you've never studied this out, study it out. It's a great study. This isn't the first mention of a juniper tree. I don't remember if you remember me talking about this before. So he was stressed out. This was just stress. I don't think this was burnout. Do you feel otherwise?
No, this was just stress.
Yeah, he was just stressed out. He got a death note after a great revival.
Right. And he knew they would follow up with it.
Yeah. And so he ran for his life. No destination in mind, just running. And he left his servant in Beersheba. Side note, never leave yourself alone. Accountability sometimes seems like a prison, but it's really not. It's really not. He left himself alone, left his servant in Beersheba, and just kept running, and then sat down under a juniper tree and started talking to God. So that's the good part. He was talking to God. He said, God, take away my life, for I'm not better than my fathers. And so he's praying. And in verse 5, it says, And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, an angel touched him and said unto him, Arise and eat. And so then God's sustaining him under this juniper tree. He's feeding him. He's giving him something to drink. There was a cruse of water there. And he ate and drank, and then he slept. And a few days later, I'm going to say it was a few days. Anyway, he kept running unto Mount Horeb. And this is where God starts speaking to him. And he went into the cave. He was sleeping there, and God came to him and started talking to him. Not in a whirlwind, not in a fire, not an earthquake, but in a still small voice. He came to him and said, What are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah starts pouring himself out. I've been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts. The rest of the people, they've forsaken you. I'm the only one left. It's just me, and now they're seeking to take away my life. And God just told him, Go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And he went to the mouth of the cave, and this is where the earthquake, the wind, the fire, all of that happened. And there came a voice unto him and said, What are you doing here, Elijah? Same exact wording that happened before. And Elijah said again, I've been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, because everyone else has left you, and it's just me. And God starts speaking to him again. But going back to the juniper tree, a juniper tree in the Bible was a sign of something changed. People went there because they were either A, in distress, or B, they were burned out. And I'm not going to mention every single type, every place where it was mentioned, but another place, if you study it out, that a lot of people believe the juniper was mentioned, not in that wording, was with Hagar, when Abraham sent her and Ishmael away. In that scenario, she threw him under a bush, and then she went a stone's throw, an arrow's throw away, and she went under a tree, and that was a juniper tree, and God met her there. So each time that you have distress or you're burned out, God's ready to meet you, just as a side note there. So I think that's a pretty good introduction to burnout. Let's start going over causes of burnout, maybe how to prevent it. I do want to mention, not necessarily right now, but on one of the points here, I have balancing passion with practicality. So
before we go into causes, I think we should do signs of burnout first, because you need to learn how to recognize the signs.
Signs and then cause.
So like one sign would be if you lose your joy. If you lose your joy for playing music or something like that. Another one would be feeling overwhelmed by practices and even performance. I know we don't really call church service a performance, but you get my meaning. there are physical symptoms. If you feel always just fatigued, tired, there's a lot of tension. And another big one is when you just start avoiding music altogether. Like you stop listening to it, you only play it when you're in service or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, 100%. You don't ever want to get to a point where it tires you. If you're at that point, you can't just necessarily stop.
And if you're always discouraged by having to play.
Yeah. And not to say there's going to be times where you don't want to play.
Right.
There's times in any form of our walk with God where you're not going to want to do it. There's times where I don't want to pray. I don't want to read my Bible. I don't want to fast. For sure, I don't want to fast. But doing in those moments, it breaks the flesh. It's putting me in a place where I better understand God. Going to be a heavy subject here, I think, today. Okay. So, causes of burnout in ministry and music. Number one, overcommitting to too many responsibilities. Not just two responsibilities, just too many.
Another one that kind of goes along with that would be over practicing.
Yeah, kind of just like hand in hand there.
Yeah.
Don't do too much. If you're a leader, delegate some of it out. If you're not a leader and you're just, I'm going to say a minister in some form, go to either your man of God or your direct leader and just talk to him. Like, let's use cadet ministry. So I'm the cadet leader here in Huntington. Zeke, you're one of the cadets. So if you were burned out, you could either, just for example here, you could either come to me straight away, be like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Or another way is to go to your man of God. Now, side note here, don't always go to your man of God. I'm not telling you not to go to him. Just be careful because you don't want to bother your man of God. Like going to him continuously for something can be tiring for both you and him. So just a side note there. Lack of boundaries. You're always saying yes instead of just saying no sometimes.
Which is overcommitting.
Right. Kind of going hand in hand there. It's okay to say no to some things. This is the kingdom of God. There's going to be things where Zeke will do it better than I can. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try or learn how to do it. But if he can do it the best, like guitar, I don't know how to play guitar. I could figure it out maybe if I absolutely needed to, but he's going to be better at that. So I would probably if somebody asked me to play, I would probably say no. Put me on another instrument. I can help there.
Another cause, I think, is if you lack variety in whatever you're feeling burned out in.
Mm-hmm.
If you lack variety in doing it, you're going to get burnt out easy because you're just doing the same thing.
Going along with that, trying to meet high expectations or perform like
comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Just comparing yourself or a pressure to perform, just like in any context, that can be a cause of burnout too.
Mm-hmm.
A very heavy one. Or time management and prioritization. Manage your time wisely. Easier said than done. But if you know you're playing an event in a week,
practice.
And let's say you have one hard song on there, the rest are pretty easy. You want to focus on the hard song. Don't throw the others out the window.
Prioritize the hard song, but practice them all.
Yeah. So like in your practice time, especially if, let's say it's a 4 or 5 song set, I'm going to practice probably the hard song with one of the easy songs probably every day. It's not going to be a long practice time. It's probably going to be like 30 or 40 minutes. But that's going to help me tremendously in the long run. And that kind of goes along with some of these prevention strategies I have. And we've kind of just went over them as we're going through the causes. So just like...
I like this one. In your mind, put the importance on enjoying it instead of perfecting it.
Right. and you want to have a good balance there.
Mm-hmm.
Without a balance, you're going to have a hard time.
Set realistic
avoiding.
Goals too. Like,
Yeah,
don't
that was
be
actually
set.
what I was getting ready to say.
Don't be set. Don't set. Okay, I'm going to practice 3 hours every day.
Yeah,
Has to be realistic.
yeah, and just knowing like a basic song structure. We kind of went over it last week. Because normally the song starts out low. Like in the intro, it's usually low, maybe like 30-40% high. So it's roughly low to mid. It usually goes down in the verse dynamically. Maybe stays the same, maybe comes up a tad in the chorus. And then it just kind of keeps building up as you go to the bridge. That's the highest part. And then it'll either go to the vamp, which is a little bit higher, or down to a cut chorus, which it goes down in dynamic there. So just knowing song structure, exercising, maybe hobbies, make sure you're getting enough sleep. That all plays a part in helping avoid burnout. Your mental.
One thing is if you schedule a day where this day, yes, I'm going to practice because you need to practice every day, but maybe a little bit less time than everything else. So that way you're just practicing absolute necessities, but not like extremely hard songs. Like, give yourself a little bit of a break, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I don't have a lot on my note list here, but another thing I have is let's do recovering from burnout. Mm-hmm. Acknowledging burnout without guilt. Everybody struggles with this. I know I've struggled with it as a musician in my personal walk with God. Like there's been times even this past year where I didn't want to pray.
Burnout's real.
Yeah. Everybody struggles with it. So
because
don't
we're
be
human.
Guilty because of it. I'm sorry. I think I cut you off.
You always cut me off. But I said because we're human, you're going to struggle with it. Like, you can't get around it.
Yeah. Seek help. Get an accountability partner. Talk to your pastor, your man of God. It's going to help you tremendously.
Take a break.
Yeah, maybe you just need to take a break. Like if you're a musician, talk to your music leader, your pastor, be like, hey, I'll play main service, but I need altar call off. I'm going to pray. I'm going to be in the altar at altar call.
Or maybe you need like Wednesdays off.
Yeah.
So you can be worshiping.
Make sure you just talk to your pastor, music leader about that. Don't just take off without saying anything because that's not right. And that kind of goes along with making changes to repeat this cycle. So after you recovered, you're out, you've acknowledged it.
Don't continually be in burnout. No. If you feel like you're in burnout, fix it.
Yeah. And here's something that I've kind of done that's helped me is like, for those of you who don't know, I'm the full-time drummer here. I play Sunday morning, Sunday night, midweek. I come to practices, all of that. So I play several times a week. One thing that's helped me tremendously is in my prayer time, and some of the youth members especially know in my prayer time, I sing, although I am an awful singer, can't stay on key, but it's helped me tremendously just having that little time in my prayer just to worship and glorify God.
Because if you're not doing it in your own prayer time, when are you doing it? If you're playing every service.
Right. Especially if you're doing like main service and altar calls.
Yeah. Even if you're not doing altar calls, you still need to worship.
Yeah.
Outside of service.
Yeah. And like there's times where other people play a service or two, and sometimes like I'll play keys or I'll be in the sound booth. And like, although I'm still being in ministry, the change is also a fantastic way just to avoid burning out, because you're still in ministry, you're still worshiping, but you can worship in a slightly different way than what you were before. And so that kind of goes with my last point under recovering from burnout, focusing on small, sustainable improvements. Improve a little at a time.
Yep. Can't do nothing overnight.
Balancing passion with practicality. Is there anything you want to go over? I love this part of the idea of talking about burnout.
Just because you have a passion for it doesn't mean you need to do it all the time.
Yeah. Importance, remembering why you started. Why do you enjoy this? Whether that's music or sound or
enjoy whatever. It for the right reason.
Yeah. you find joy in the process too, not just with results. So I know we've mentioned before, and like the Beyond Sundays, I think it was, practicing isn't just practicing to know your stuff. It's a form of worship.
Mm-hmm.
Finding joy in that, it gives you fulfillment. That's going to help you keep from getting burned out, in my opinion. I don't know if that's what you think, but I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who support and challenge you. That's going to keep you growing.
But don't compare yourself to them.
Don't compare yourself to them.
Right.
Being around, let's say, people who are better,
Mm-hmm.
or even on a lower skill level than you are, will grow. You'll help them grow, but you're going to grow in either sense. Because then you can help either teach or you can learn. Sometimes you can do both.
I've heard this. Can't remember who said it, but they said a teacher is really just a professional learner.
Oh, yeah. I would
Which
agree with that.
I think that's when I started, like, when people started asking me questions about guitar and stuff, I'd be like, yeah, I have no idea. I'm going to go research that. Then I learned something, but I'm also teaching. It was one of the best ways to excel.
And sometimes you wouldn't have researched that or try to figure that out.
You wouldn't even thought of it.
Yeah. It's a different mindset that's coming to the table, so to speak, and giving a unique perspective. Knowing when to step back for a reset, kind of going back to what we mentioned earlier. If you're burned out, acknowledge it, talk to your pastor, whomever. Maybe you just need to take a break for a service. Maybe it's just one service.
Yeah, maybe it's like once a month you have the third Wednesday off or whatever.
Yeah, whatever midweek is for you.
Yeah.
So that's burnout. That's kind of like a brief overview of burnout. Let's quickly go over some statistics. I don't know, when was the last time you looked at these statistics? I look about every other day, 3 to 4 times a week.
I haven't looked in a while.
Okay. So let me look here. And I will say we had one comment on Spotify that I've seen. I don't know. I'm sorry if I've missed your comment on a different platform. I check a few of them. So if it's out there, give me time. I or Zeke will find it. So from February 1st to today's the 16th when we're recording this, Sunday afternoon. So from the 1st to the 16th, we've had 63 downloads. So that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 59. The downloads might be off a little bit. It breaks it down for me where my audience comes from. Is what it says. The United States says 59 downloads. We've had 3 downloads in Germany and 1 download in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Wow. Shout out to them.
Yeah, that's 63. Okay. Yeah, but so shout out to New Zealand and Germany.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
We appreciate you. It gives me, most of our listeners is on Apple Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Apple is better than Android, so. But we also have the second majority is going to be Spotify. We have had a few people on Podbean, Firefox, and Google Chrome, Safari, Audible, too.
I didn't know we were on all those places, honestly.
We're in quite a few. Like, I typed in our podcast name, and there was a couple new platforms that pulled up, and I was like, I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah, that's crazy. And
so our most popular episode thus far has been Beyond the Sunday Service.
Really? That was a good one.
It was a good one. So maybe we need to do more like that. So that's cool. Shout out to all of you guys. If you have any suggestions on episodes that you want us to cover, we'd love to hear your responses. Going back, so on a previous podcast, sorry, this is my ADHD kicking.
Yeah, sorry guys. He's very everywhere all the time.
This will happen when I'm off recording
all the time.
But I believe it was top apps and websites. We had a new sound setup, and we went, instead of going out of, like, if you were in earbuds, it would go, me was in, like, your right, Zeke would be in your left. Now it's a mix of both. And so we had mentioned that, asked you guys to comment if it sounded better, if you'd like the new setup. We had one person who did. Shout out to Beaster Day from Spotify. We appreciate that. They said that it sounded really good, great episode. They really enjoyed that. So shout out there. And then we also mentioned on a previous episode of a special guest. I've already messaged them. I don't know when we're going to meet to record. So that's still up in the air. Should we go ahead and drop a name?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not till we have a date.
Okay. But we got some good stuff coming up that we're going to meet and record with.
And we need your ideas. We need all of y'all's ideas for podcast episodes. That would be something you're interested in us talking about, or just something fun. I guess all of our episodes don't have to be so serious.
Yeah, this was by far the most serious we've gotten. I will say, when we record with our special guest, I would love to do an interview. So I need to develop some interview questions of what we can ask. Just some fun, off-the-wall stuff.
We'll have our speed round.
Yeah.
I don't know what we'll call it. Speed round? That sounds fun.
You got the speed round from the convo with Kurt and Colton.
Really? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I think that's.
I've listened to so many podcasts with that specific area.
So just kind of to give you an overview, we have some great stuff coming up. So keep listening. Share this podcast with your friends, your family. We greatly appreciate all of you guys out there in Musicians Musings Nation, world, whatever you want to call it. So join us next time as we discuss top lessons we have learned as church musicians. So that's going to be fun. That'll be really fun. Maybe we can have some fun fails or something. Maybe we can get Pastor or Sister Fishburne to come on and kind of make fun of us too.
Hopefully not fails.
I think that'd be fun to go over. And that maybe we can combine worship music fails with top lessons we have learned because of them. That'd be cool. Anyway, join us next time, next Sunday morning at 9 o'clock.